Purdue-Fort Wayne men's volleyball took their longest road trip of the season this week to visit number 8 Stanford for a pair of matches in Northern California. The warm and sunshine were not enough to break the Dons out of their funk as we dropped the first match in 4 sets and the second match in 3. We go coast to coast this week, leaving Thursday for the East Coast to play Sacred Heart on Friday and Harvard on Saturday. Join us to learn all about that and more with head coach Ryan Rock-Perot and senior opposite Colton Stone in next week's edition of VolleyDons Weekly. Welcome everybody to VolleyDons Weekly. I am your host, JW Keycafer. With me we have the star of the show, head coach Ryan Rock-Perot in the hot seat. Coach Rock, how you doing this fine, freezing cold morning?
It is a beautiful day outside and I'm happy to be here.
It's a beautiful day outside, huh?
It's a beautiful
it's a
day.
Bit much.
That cool, crisp Canadian air is blowing through the area and I love it.
You know what's interesting?
Yeah.
Is you always say to our guys, like, oh, this is Canadian weather. You got to get used to it. And I'm from farther north than you are, and I'm from the United States.
Yes.
So it's not Canadian weather, it's just northern weather.
No, it is Canadian weather. The difference is how the winds move. It actually blows over and misses Wisconsin. So you actually don't
so
get to
it goes over
see.
Wisconsin and then back
Misses
down
Wisconsin.
south.
There's a big air bubble that comes up high pressure, and when the high pressure hits, obviously we have a green screen over there. Should I demonstrate?
It
keeps the weather over, and it misses. It actually goes through my favorite place, Eau Claire, and then gets into Canada.
Just going to start naming random Wisconsin cities now, huh?
That is correct. Speaking of states, I have a question for you.
Yeah, what is the question?
Because I'm going to ask you it again.
What is the question?
Because we went out to California last week.
We did. We played at Stanford. We played 2 matches at Stanford.
And I have a question. Why is California a republic?
This is so. Last time you asked, you said you had a history question for me.
Yes.
And it actually was a geography question.
Okay,
this one is actually a history question.
Okay, and you're the history guy, so I'm curious.
California was its own state for a while. Like nation state, it didn't become into the union right away.
Okay, and Virginia is a commonwealth.
Yeah.
What's the difference between a republic and a commonwealth? Because I really don't know.
I'm pretty sure it was a commonwealth before it was a state. So like as a colony of the British colonies, they were Virginia Commonwealth. A commonwealth is a nation state of the British, right? So I believe it was the Virginia Commonwealth while it was still a colony. And then when they became a state, they just kept that moniker of a commonwealth. I believe. I could be wrong on that one. I'm not 100% sure on that one.
Fascinating. I love history.
Moving on to the actual volleyball, which is why people watch this show.
Oh, that's right.
Or maybe they turn in for the banter. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's why they watch the first 5 minutes. I really don't know.
The Oscars are coming up, so that'll be good.
But we did play 2 matches this week out in Northern California.
Last week,
excuse me. On Friday and Saturday, we played 2 against number 8 Stanford in Palo Alto, California, in Northern California.
Yes, Palo Alto.
Unfortunately, we lost both matches, the first one in 4 sets.
Yeah.
It was pretty good volleyball, I thought, though. The first match, we lost the first set really close, 23-25. Lost the second, 22-25. We ended up flipping middles, so Richie and Tomas switched positions, kept the same lineup in, won the third set, 25-22, and then unfortunately dropped another really, really close set in the fourth, 25-23. So really, really good volleyball out there in the historic Maples Pavilion on Friday.
Oh, it was wonderful to be back. It's been 10 years for me since the last time I was at Maples Pavilion. I was there in 2009 when they hosted the championship, and they beat Penn State to win their second national title. That first match is really interesting because I thought it was high level of play. And it actually, we should have probably won in 3, to be quite honest with you. If we had a transition game, if we would have been able to keep our momentum in regards to serving, and if we had one other individual, other than the reigning MIVA Offensive Player of the Week in Colton Stone, kind of step up to the plate, I think we win that first set and that second set. And it was just untimely errors or untimely non-playmaking that did us in against Stanford.
It's interesting you say that, as well as maybe you think we should have won in 3. We were really close, and we're leading late in that 4th set even too. So we had a chance to, after we went down 0-2, to kind of do what CSUN did to us and send that match to 5 sets and see what would happen in the 5th. Unfortunately, we made some untimely errors there, overset Pellegrin Vargas. You know, we didn't dig a ball. Pellegrin kind of rolled to serve in, and then Colton Stone unfortunately had a hitting error to lose that match. So we kind of unfortunately gave away that 4th set too, and I thought we had a chance to take it to 5.
It's very difficult to play from behind. And when you play from behind, you have to be physically gifted. We are not the biggest volleyball team in the country, and Stanford was bigger than us, obviously, which means your execution on the skill side of things or the tactical side of things has to be premium. And yeah, we had opportunities in the 4th set to prolong it to a 5-set match, but you got to capitalize on those opportunities given to you early on in matches because it's a momentum builder. If you don't do that, you question yourself after the 1st set. Wow, we maybe turned, and we must have had 11 or 12 transition point scoring opportunities that we only maybe capitalized on 2.
Yeah.
You turn a couple of those, it's a momentum builder, and it gets you going. It's not just a physical thing, it's also a mindset.
You talked a little bit about the technical side of things and how maybe that's a big deal. I thought in terms of in the backcourt, the biggest difference helps the transition game in terms of that was the defensive ability and the quality of touch from that first touch on defense in the backcourt. I thought Stanford dug a ton of balls that kept them in system. Even some like ridiculous one-armed laying out plays, they dug balls at 20 feet in the air, 10 feet off the net where their setter could go and keep their team in system. I thought our digs were more kind of sprayed towards the back line, outside of the court where our sitter had to run and kind of just throw high balls up in the air. So quality versus quantity of digs I thought was a big thing in that Friday night match, which allowed Stanford to be in system in transition, and I didn't think we were in system in transition as often.
And I don't disagree with that, and I think there's some validity to that. I think also, and it's not an excuse, it's also a reason. I remember trying to explain this to somebody last year in regards to teams that tip against us. When we play opponents, because opponents are bigger than us, we got to tip the ball up and over a block. Opponents go against us, they can actually tip the ball on a line drive because we're not as big. It's a different story. I think the same thing happens with the attack. I think when teams attack against us, they get to attack Jalen Jesper, who's probably going to be a second-team All-American, opposite, who's 6'9". Yeah, he's one of the most athletic players, who 6'9", touches like 12 feet. He can go over the top, and it's a different trajectory for our defense. And I think sometimes that plays a factor. Again, not an excuse, not a reason, just a rationale in regards to why the quality of the touch can be so difficult defensively for us as opposed to other volleyball teams.
Then the very next night on Saturday, we turned around and played that same Stanford team up in Northern California. This time a switch of pavilion, if you will. We went across the street from Maples Pavilion into Burnham Pavilion, more of an intimate setting, a lot less stadium seating and a lot smaller. So unfortunately, maybe the stadium changed our tempo, or we just didn't come out as hot, and we lost that match in 3, 17-25, 21-25, 23-25. That 3rd set actually was really, really close, back and forth the entire time up until late. Stanford got a 2-point lead, I think, at like 22-20, and we just weren't able to chip our way back into it. Colton Stone had a good serve and a good point late, but we couldn't end up capitalizing on that. And lost that set 23-25.
Yeah, Burnham Pavilion is the older of the 2 pavilions, by the way.
1940s is what they were told. I was told it was built.
1924.
1924. Okay.
1924. It's the original.
You're the
one.
history guy, not me,
right.
huh?
It's at least when it comes to athletics, I am. And Maples was built a lot later, and it's a beautiful, intimate setting. They still have the old bleachers, the old brick. I mean,
it is beautiful. It is a beautiful old school building.
Phenomenal. It's a difficult match to play, and it's about adjustments when you play the same team back-to-back nights or twice in a week span. And what we did not do very well and haven't done very well after a loss on a Friday night is bounce back with a much better performance on a Saturday night. We haven't done that in a couple of years. And I think it's a mental thing when you lose heartbreakers on Friday. And they took it to us. I mean, we were sloppy. We didn't serve the ball very well. We did not pass the ball very well, and that just put us on the defensive right away. We made too many errors. They blocked a lot of balls. I thought their serving was way consistent. They played unbelievable defense again. So the great positive that came out of the match, however, is the fact that I got Cody Johnson into the match, who's a hometown boy, allegedly. He's from San Diego, not California. Well, not from the northern part, from the southern part. And I thought he played extremely well for our team. Fred Santos was able to come in off the bench and do some really nice things for us as well. So that was kind of the silver lining to a very, very poor Saturday night. And
with that, we'll go over the champions of the game, if you will, and you'll see a little duplicate here on the good old graphic. Colton Stone, twice. Luckily, we have him this week for our guest of the week. Colton Stone had a fantastic weekend in both matches, hit over 350, 15 kills in both, which is impressive because they were only 3 and 4 sets. So extremely efficient offensively, 2 aces in that first match, which kept us in it, and then 4 digs in the second. So extremely good play by him all weekend.
Well, he got some really good looks. I thought our offensive scheme to spread out our offense in order to open him up on the backside was really, really key to hopefully having success, and he was able to take advantage of it on the backside. And it's a great bounce back for him because he didn't play particularly well, at least offensively, against CSUN in Santa Barbara here at home, even though he was very effective from the service line and in the backcourt. But it's really nice to see him. I think he averaged 5 points per set out in Stanford, 30 kills over 2 matches against a big monster team and a ranked team. I think it was a tremendous performance by him.
And with that, a little foreshadowing, we'll bring on our guest of the week, Colton Stone, coming up after the break. See you soon.
What about my privacy?
It's protected.
And the music I listen to. Protected.
What about how I wear my hair?
And the things I say and write?
The Constitution protects your rights.
It isn't an old, fading piece of paper.
It's a living document.
The Constitution says there are 3 branches of government.
So we're kind of like the 4th branch of government.
We are the future of America.
Find out how you could become part of Constitution Day.
For me.
For all. For real.
Constitution Day is every day.
180 million Americans rely on drinking water from forests often hundreds of miles away. These trees capture rain and snow, replenish rivers and streams, and keep our water pure. But we lose millions of acres of forest trees a year. And those trees must be replanted so your glass can be refilled. The Arbor Day Foundation asks for your help in replanting our national forests. Visit arborday.org. See how you can help.
Welcome everybody back to VolleyDons Weekly. With me now we have senior opposite Colton Stone, super senior, if you will, 5th-year senior. He's been here for a long time, just as it feels like as long as I have at this point.
I know. First year coaching for you.
Yeah, that man making me feel really old now, man. First year coaching 5 years later, boy.
Love making those jokes.
Yeah, you do. You made a joke about that at my birthday last year at Loyola. Boy, I didn't know you were that old. Yeah, I am that old, Colton. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yep.
How's everything been going? You know, awesome week this week.
I know, it felt good to
30
finally
kills
be
in
offensive.
2 matches.
Yeah.
Woo.
Michael's been feeding me the ball really well, and we've been playing good defense, so I've gotten a lot of opportunities on the right side, so it was nice.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that teams have been defending us in a certain way that kind of opens up the back pin, or
yeah,
why do you think you've been getting as good of those looks if we've been getting?
I think a lot of middles have to front our middles because they're so offensive, and they'll get a kill if they're not committed on every time. So I usually have a one-on-one look when Michael throws it back to me.
And that 3, both of them over 360. You know, you talk about an opposite hitting percentage. Anything over 300 is pretty good. So once you get above 360, you're in fuego, if you will, right? You know, so being a 5th-year senior, all the experience on the volleyball court, 3rd-year starter, do you think it's helped you in terms of this year being more efficient and seeing the game differently?
Definitely. My freshman year, I just wasn't there physically, and I got to take a year to just develop and learn from all the seniors that year. There are some greats like Omar Rivera, Ramon Burgos. I learned a lot from them, and it's definitely helped me grow as a player. I've had a lot of chemistry with a lot of the players since I've played with them for 4 years now, and it just helps all around in the game.
Do you think, in terms of the offensive stuff, do you think you've seen the game or approached the game differently maybe this year as maybe you had in the past, being a year older, a year wiser? Or is it just go out and do your thing and win matches?
Like last year, you were saying go see the ball and hit the ball really
That's
hard.
our approaches here, huh?
Yeah.
You know, I think one of the things with Colton has been when he plays well, he's just going up and he's letting his instincts take over and seeing the game really well. And maybe last year we got into a funk of just trying to do some different things, you know, expanding our range and using our wrist. And once we got in our head a little bit, that's when maybe it went downhill. But all of a sudden we got back to just being an instinctual volleyball player, and I think that's something that really helped you out last year.
Yeah, definitely.
What has been the most, I guess for all of you who don't know, Colton started at the outside position for us his sophomore year. We had a couple injuries to Pellegrin and Tony. He came into us as an outside hitter, so that's his more natural position. And then you've transitioned to this opposite position over the last 2 years. The first year you did it was last year even. So talk about maybe that transition and what was easy for you, what wasn't easy for you, and what made it difficult or what made it easy.
Okay, so easy, I would say like my arm swing's better on the right side because I have like the natural flow of my arm swing from there. The harder parts are probably blocking because it's different footwork. I'm going to a different pin, so that's a big challenge for me. And then playing right back defense, like the middle's just bouncing balls on you all the time instead of middle back where you just get to kind of hang out back there and wait for a block touch and play it off of that.
Yeah, middle back in terms of the backcourt defense, middle back is much more of a development position, right? You let the play the develop, and then you go make a read. When you play the wings defensively, it's kind of like look out, ball's coming fast, and you got to really be ready to wear one every once in a while. Yeah. So that's the biggest difference in terms of middle back to the wings is you got to always be ready on the wings right away, whereas middle back you get some time. Offensively, maybe. Going from the left to the right, talk about the differences in the offense. Like what balls are you getting differently? How do you have to approach it differently offensively?
In one rotation, I'm still hitting on the outside, so I still get a little bit of those outside swings. Those are pretty nice. But offensively, I don't get the overload with the middle, like for the fast shoot to the outside. So sometimes Michael gives the outside some one-on-nones and they just get to bounce those balls. But on the right side, Michael's throwing me up good balls and I can just go attack them.
I think one of the other big differences is, too, in that opposite position, you get a lot more high ball scenario attacking opportunities. So how do you attack those situations? What's something you're looking at in those situations?
Just swinging deep, swinging high hands. Yeah, if it's pushed to the left side of the court at all, Michael usually likes to go long distance, so he'll throw the ball back to me and just have to try to find a way to score.
Yeah, and that's when you get a lot of those one-on-one opportunities, right, where that ball's hanging, but there's only one guy there because we run such a quick offense to the other side. You just got to be smart in terms of where that one blocker is and trying to get away from him. What do you think has been the difference, or Coach Rock kind of mentioned it a little bit. The last 3 matches, I think even against UCSB, you hit over 350. I think you're really good in that match. So the last 3 matches, we've been playing really, really well. Has there been a difference in mentality? Just all of a sudden it's clicked? What's kind of been the difference in the last 3 matches, do you think?
Yeah, I think me and Michael have just clicked recently. He's been giving me some really good balls, and in the beginning of the season, I was just thinking too much. I just realized that I have to just go up and hit the ball instead of thinking about where my next shot is going to be. Just let my natural instincts come in, like you were saying earlier.
Yeah, I think that's been a big key for you your entire career is the more you think about it, the more you get in your own head, kind of it's limited your aggressiveness, if you will, and just got to let yourself go up and hit the ball hard, right? Mm-hmm. So what are some of the goals you have for the rest of the season?
Some of my goals, hit 300 every match. I want to be top 3 to 5 in the nation in aces. That's just a goal of mine. I have a pretty good serve, so hopefully I can
2 aces in that first night against Stanford.
Mm-hmm. So hopefully I can get one of those goals. And some of the team goals that we have is finishing top 4 in the MIVA, and then hopefully making it to the national championship game.
Awesome. I think one of the big things about being here is not just your athletic prowess, but being good in the classroom, and you've been above a 3.0 student here for most of your time here. So talk a little about why you chose business and why you chose Purdue-Fort Wayne.
So Purdue-Fort Wayne was just an awesome school. I get my degree from Indiana University, and it's a top 10 business school in the nation. So that's why I chose here. And then I'm double majoring in marketing and management, and I want to go into sales. I'd say I'm a pretty big people person, and
you are, that's true.
And I think I can do really well if I can relate to a product and sell it out.
Everybody loves Colton Stone. I feel it's that smile right there. Everybody loves Colton Stone. Everybody gravitates toward Colton Stone. So I know he's going to be super successful in the business world when he gets out of here. So thank you, Colton, for joining us. And on the next segment, we'll get Coach Rock back to talk about Sacred Heart and Harvard.
This is Katie, and well, you know who I am. Life's going great for Katie. Class president, captain of her soccer team, and just aced her SATs. And she loves to text. But I know something she doesn't. See that intersection? A car will be going through it in precisely 3 seconds. I'll give her today, But tomorrow, who knows?
Welcome back, everybody, to VolleyDons Weekly. Again, we have in the hot seat head coach Ryan Rock-Barat, starring head coach Ryan Rock-Barat. All the words before your name. There's a lot of words that have to go before your name these days.
So kind in your introductions.
Am I so kind? I have. That's kind of my job, isn't it, to be nice to our fellow guests?
And this is not a hot seat.
It's not a hot seat. I do a good job of being very welcoming, huh?
Oh, nice and comfortable.
Talk about. We just had Colton Stone on the broadcast. Talk a little bit about Colton Stone and his development over the last 5 years here and how he's kind of matured as he's been here.
The most important part of his game has become his serve. And it's the thing he controls the most. And that transcends into, or vice versa, has caused the transcension into his personality. Transcension, you like that word?
I don't know if that one's a word, but
That's
we'll go with it.
Oh, yeah,
we'll
look
run
it
with it.
Is because of his cool and calm demeanor. And if you watch him play, he's one of those guys that you can just watch and he never gets razzled. He never panics. He literally goes about his duties on the volleyball court.
Well, that's when he's playing well. When he's playing well, you could always look at Colton Stone and know how he's playing. If he's flustered, you know it's not going to look very good.
But he does not show his frustration. That's not another word. Frustration. He does not show his frustration on the volleyball court in an outward fashion.
He's done a very good job of getting better at that over the last 5 years.
And that's a sign of maturation. And he's an individual that has so much confidence when he plays the game because he knows his arm is good, he's athletic, he can do things with the ball that some other people can't. It really speaks volumes to how much work he's put in to improve his game.
And he's really given us a presence on that right pin that we hadn't had in a long time with his arm and his ability to hit the ball really, really hard, if you will, as he was talking about before, how we talked about that last year.
See the ball, hit the ball, huh?
See the ball, hit the ball. Those were his 2 rules last year after he was in his funk. So he's done a great job with that this year, just hitting it hard and trying to find some space.
Well, now he's got to keep it up and be consistent.
You got to keep it up, keep that 350 hitting percentage up. Let's talk a little bit about the matches we have coming up on Friday. We're traveling out to Connecticut, Fairfield, Connecticut, to play Sacred Heart.
Yep.
A team that has given us a lot of issues over the past on their home floor. Conversely, on our home floor, we've been 5-0. So 2-2 out there, 5-0 here. So big difference there. Talk about maybe why that difference exists.
I don't know. I mean, the travel probably on a long bus trip affects us. This year, we're going to fly out there. So hopefully that will eliminate some of the wear and tear that being on a bus for so long, contorted as a tall individual, can pose on a person. I also believe that it's a very difficult place to play. Their gymnasium is big and it's open spaced, and so I think catching the ball is rather difficult. And they've been a really good volleyball team the last couple of years. They've been really competitive. This year they have a coaching change. Bob Bertucci is their coach, a longtime coach in the Eastern Association. So it's going to be very interesting to see what kind of identity they have under this new coach. But they've been talented in years. It's not a gimme match anymore with Sacred Heart, and so I'm expecting them to fight hard on their home court.
And they've always done that. They've always done that in their home court, and even on our home court, we've just found ways to overcome it. They dig a ton of volleyballs and bring them back, and that's been their identity the last couple of years, which has given us so much trouble on the road. Even in those
team.
2 wins we have against them on the road, there were 5 sets.
Yeah, they're a scrappy volleyball team, and you know, they're always out to prove something on their floor, especially against us. I think they feel that they match up really well against us, I believe, and so it just energizes them, especially their defense to offense.
And then Saturday we're going to drive down back to Boston, Cambridge specifically, to play Harvard. Playing all the smart schools this year, Princeton, Stanford, Harvard, man, we feel really inferior, I think, academically when we go through all these schools.
Well, I did that because we won the ABC.
At least we won against Princeton, right? We got 1 win against the Smarties. All-time record 2-2, away 1-1. A really good series. We haven't only started playing them recently. And it's been a lot of good volleyball between us and them.
Yeah, and I think this may be the last year for a couple of years that we play Harvard again. And Harvard went to the national tournament last year at UCLA, and they played the Bruins. Actually, they played them pretty tough. Could have won that match. So I think they got the bubble out. And I think when you get that kind of success, now you know what it takes to get back there again. And I think it'll be a very difficult match. I remember it a few years ago when we were there and how tough it is to play at that facility.
That's a really interesting facility
it's
up on the
really
fourth floor.
Fourth floor,
in the middle
intimate,
of Boston,
interactive.
yeah.
Not a big crowd, but they're very loud. The noise reverberates really nicely there. So they are a talented group of individuals, and that's going to be a really tough test for us to end our non-conference part one.
You mentioned the fact that they went to the tournament last year, some other things that are interesting that give us trouble have been the fast tempo they run to the left and the right pin, and they're led by their setter, Matt Zvertlik, who's the son of Bob Zvertlik from a U.S. national team.
And Bob Zvertlik was one of the great volleyball players this country's ever produced.
And his son is a really, really good volleyball player as well.
His son is very talented as a setter. Bob Zvertlik was a passer and played the outside for the national team for many, many years in the 80s. It's going to be interesting because of that fast tempo. We obviously run our own fast tempo here, and it'll be very interesting the contrast. I think we have a little bit more dynamic variety to our offense as opposed to them going more straight up with their speed. I think we're able to counter with a little bit more big action, a little more middle action. But it'll be very interesting to see. You know, they've had a really tough schedule early, and they've competed in some really tough 5-set matches early on against some of the California schools. So they're feeling good about themselves as they get ready to host us Saturday.
They've played a lot of 5-setters. Grand Canyon, I believe, 5 sets. They lost to CSUN in 5 sets.
5 sets.
That we lost
Santa Barbara.
Yep. So they've been a good volleyball team. I think they're a little bit young this year. They graduated a couple of guys from their team last year, but they've done a good job of being super competitive, and they're hungry for a win, man. They've been right there, and we got to make sure we don't give it to them. So with that, we can preview our matches this weekend. Again, on Friday, we'll be playing at Sacred Heart in Fairfield, Connecticut at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then we'll follow that up on February 2nd, Saturday, the next night, going down to Cambridge, Massachusetts to play at 7 p.m. as well against Harvard. So both those matches at 7 p.m. on Friday and Saturday. If you're looking to watch them, you could always go on gomastodons.com, find the men's volleyball page, and you can find the links to watching those matches at that time. So a thank you again to senior opposite Colton Stone and all he's done for our program. Thank you to head coach Ryan Rockpride for being here and for always giving us so much of his knowledge about the game and about the players in the game. We appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you all next week. Thank you again. And for VolleyDons Weekly, we're over and out.